Hey guys, welcome to Make Money Count. Today's kind of like a Christmas episode a little bit. What we're going to talk about, I'm not 100% sure, so I hope Marcus knows. But a lot has gone on since we last did our podcast.
Oh my God.
Chrystia Freeland's out. Everyone's more vocal about hating Trudeau. And
You need to stay so on top of this podcast game these days. Because we had a podcast that we did about the budget, if you remember.
Yep.
Where we talked about, it was funny. Like we had some clips of Chrystia Freeland bumbling around. You called her the Canadian ham sandwich.
Yeah.
I did a shout out to my buddy Chris Rams, who gave us the idea for the podcast. I love you, Chris. I've known Chris since I was, 12 years old. Still my best friend. Well, my twin brother is my best friend, but literally right up there.
Right.
You know. Anyways, and so Chris was saying you got to talk about this. It looks like the budget's going to be blown by $22 billion. No one was really talking about it. We did a great podcast about it. We were talking about Chrystia Freeland. We were talking about where we thought things were going to go, the implications of being so far over, what happens to Trudeau. We were ready to release it. I think maybe there was a screw up. We were going to release it on Sunday.
The weekend, yeah.
Yeah. But then Sandu did the thing where he reset the phones and he was busy with that and I didn't push him for it. And then Monday, boom.
Explosion.
Yeah. So I think what we should talk about is the implications of what happens to the Canadian economy based off of what we do about our leadership.
Right.
It should be clear to everyone now that Justin Trudeau just wants to be in power.
Right.
Right? He threw Chrystia Freeland under the bus.
Yeah.
I think what happened there, from what I'm understanding, is, and I've spoken to some people that are rather close to it, but I think what happened was he was looking for Chrystia Freeland to deliver this bloated budget with a huge deficit, and then he was going to fire her.
Right.
So he was kind of trying to contain all the negativity around her, hang it around her neck, and then kick her out.
Right.
And he was hoping that Mark Carney would come in and take the role of I don't even know if he can be a minister because he wasn't elected, but
yeah.
He would become the kind of de facto minister of finance. Again, all of this is just with a hope to get reelected or to maintain power, to continue to be in power. So I think it's really important to understand that the leadership of our country right now is more focused on just keeping power than on doing what is best for our country. And let that sink in. What does that mean? Right? It means that never mind second priority or third priority, there is no concern for the economy.
Right.
Right? It is just scrambling to stay in power,
Right.
to live another day, to the point where he's kicking out his Minister of Finance, reshuffling his cabinet. He brought in Dominic LeBlanc, who was basically his babysitter when he was growing up.
Right.
So closely tied in, someone that's going to listen to everything that he says. And then publicly he explains to Canadians that he's doing it because he wants to be prepared to deal with Trump. The press releases, the commentary coming from the Prime Minister's office is you don't want to have an election right now because you need stability and people who are well versed with dealing with Trump to be there dealing with Trump.
Right. Which he is not.
Well, it doesn't matter if he's well versed in dealing with Trump. He has been completely unsuccessful. Trump doesn't like him. Canadians don't like him. He has no mandate to deal on behalf of Canadians.
Right.
So how can you go into any negotiation? And now couple that with bringing your babysitter in to do the negotiating for you, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, who's closest to me that won't screw me and will allow me to kind of continue to control the government? I'll just bring him in, and he can handle the most important thing that our country's negotiated in a very long time.
Which he's not even, like, he has no history in finance from what I read. He's
No.
like a lawyer or something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, like
right?
Harvard educated
Yeah, he's
lawyer,
not a dumb guy.
career politician.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first thing I want to look at, do you remember I was telling you about Polymarket?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Polymarket. Do you remember I was telling you about Polymarket?
Is that when you, like, date more than one market?
No.
Okay.
Polymarket is a tool. It's a website. It's created by Peter Thiel. Not created by, but I guess he's the backer behind it. Anyways, you can bet on anything.
Right.
Not if you're in Canada, but it shows you odds of things occurring. And very interestingly, if you pull this up for us, please, Austin, there is a Polymarket for will Trudeau be out by April of 2025? And we are at 66% chance. So,
And you can bet on this.
not if you're in Canada. I mean, you probably need like a VPN or something.
Right.
Right? Probably get a VPN and maybe some crypto, and you're off
Yeah,
to the races.
you're good. Yeah. That's hilarious.
So I think that we're at such a crossroads as a country. Like, we don't really have anything going for us, and everything looks negative. If we bungle the way we deal with the Trump administration, we could put ourselves into a horrible, horrible recession.
Yeah.
So I would say the first thing we've got to decide as Canadians is, who do we want to go in and negotiate with Trump?
Right.
And
I don't know if it's Trudeau's babysitter.
Right. And I think that if we bring in a conservative government that is more closely aligned to the Americans,
Right.
we will have a more, hopefully, collaborative approach to trade. I know Trump wants what's best for the United States, but I think he's also really doesn't like Trudeau.
Right.
And I think he will consider he basically waged a war on Canada to change the regime.
Right.
If you think about it.
Right.
Using like Twitter, X.
Yeah.
Like he and his statements publicly. Like all this bullshit about calling Canada the 51st state.
And he keeps doing it too.
Yeah.
It's like, he really is.
I don't like
hammering
that.
it home.
I don't like that at
No,
all. Like
no.
I don't like that. I'm a
Yeah.
proud Canadian.
Yeah.
Like Canada's not going to be the 51st state.
Yeah.
Like I don't vote for that.
Yeah.
I vote for Canada having a great relationship with the United States. I think that Trump will view a leadership change in Canada as a win, and will come to the table collaboratively with a conservative government. And I think that Canada has no choice. Like, we have cut our immigration, which was kind of artificially fueling our economy. We now have real contraction in our economy. I was reading an article that the number of jobs available is shrinking now in Canada.
Right. Yeah.
So we actually have less hiring, less capital expenditures for companies, slower growth for our country, and that will continue until we bring some certainty into how we're going to deal with these trade tariffs.
Right.
Short of that, the only other thing we got going for our economy is decreasing interest rates. And what are the decreasing interest rates doing for us? Well, if you're looking to travel, and we spoke about this months ago, but the Canadian dollar is now at, like, I don't know how many year low, probably
Is
4
it
or
in the
5
sixes
years.
yet?
69 cents. Do you want to pull it up for me, Austin? Yeah, it's totally brutal. But we're sub 70 cents. There is nothing that is going to get us over 70 cents. But I can tell you something else. Investment money will start flowing into Canada.
Right.
it's a good thesis now to invest in Canada. So it's there. It can't get worse, right? The probability that a tariff comes in is actually diminishing because, which I bet you could probably pull up on Polymarket. You know what? Punch in
The odds of the tariff?
punch in. I bet it'll be blended. I looked at this before. It'll be blended with Mexico, but just type in Trump trade tariffs Canada and see what comes up.
I'm going to spend a lot of time on this website, by the way.
Oh yeah, so good. If you had, yeah, there you go. What's the trade tariff percentage chance at? I'm gonna go sub 50. Yeah, 36% chance.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's honestly, it is a tool to negotiate, and I bet you this market, the percentage chance of a tariff will decrease with a conservative government coming in.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So like all of our eggs are in the Canadian basket,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We want what's best for Canada. We want what's best for our economy. We want what's best for our security. The person who runs our country right now just wants to stay in power. That's it.
Yeah.
He is literally driving a locomotive and he is pulling the wooden boards off of the cars that people are in and firing them in to burn them in order to generate more power to keep his little shitty locomotive moving forward just one more day in office.
I was going to say, like, he's pushing Rose off the piece of wood so that he can grasp onto that piece of wood, you know? Rose maybe being Chrystia Freeland, but...
Yeah, I mean, listen, we are in a situation where if we don't do something to address this looming trade tariff, and not like the likelihood of it happening is not 50%, it's sub 50%. The likelihood will increase if we continue to leave the Liberal government in power and pretend that they're the best negotiators for this for our future, right? Because the motivation of the guy in charge is like, you can't have a dead man walking running your country.
Yeah.
You can't have someone that's misaligned with the priorities of your country.
Right. And what do you like other than him calling an election, like nothing can really happen. We're just basically waiting for this guy to make a decision, no?
Well, the problem internally is that the NDP act as the kingmaker for Justin Trudeau, right?
Right.
So if the NDP fall out with Trudeau, and that's why Poilievre is putting so much pressure on them, if the NDP withdraws their support for the Liberal government, we will have an election.
Right. I mean, I've seen videos of Singh talking about wanting him to step down. So.
No, he doesn't. He says he listen, the NDP will not. They will at some point, but their reluctance to push for an election has nothing to do with the fact that they don't want Justin Trudeau there.
Right.
It's because they only have like a couple $100,000 in their coffers to prepare for an election.
Right.
They have no money.
Yeah.
They have no donors. They have no money. They need money if there's going to be an election, or else they're going to have fewer seats
get smoked out
in the next election.
Yeah.
Honestly, some backroom deal should probably get done where the Conservatives say, here is $1 million to help you with your election. I mean, I don't know if that's legal.
Definitely not legal.
No, like, well, from like a party lines, maybe somehow help them raise a little bit of money.
Yeah.
So that the NDP government, the NDP party has some money going into an election and they feel slightly more confident. But the sooner the election happens, the more erosion of the Liberal Party's seats will occur. And if the NDP can be seen as supporting their removal, maybe they have a chance at maintaining or not getting totally killed in the next election, which is probably what like all of these kind of political parties, unfortunately, their motivation isn't to make Canada amazing. It is to be in power, right? Like that's what these little parties are built for. Also, like, there's so much changing, like, between all of the kind of countries of the world now because of what happened in the United States. Like, The United States has pivoted. I was talking to another really good buddy of mine, Neil Spiegel, and he was saying, he had such a great line. I wish I could remember it exactly, but we were talking about what's happening, like the kind of tectonic shift of what's happening geopolitically around the world because of Trump being elected. And I think we're going to see this pivot from wokeism, DEI, to excellence.
Right.
That's what he said. He's like, if we move to a culture of excellence, can you imagine not only like the effectiveness of companies and humans and capital to increase and to do things better, but like if there is an environment where people are like, no, I'm not necessarily proud that like we are woke and inclusive. I'm proud that we're excellent.
Right.
I'm proud that we get things done better and faster than ever before. Like a focus on effectiveness of employees, effectiveness of government, effectiveness of capital. We have to remember, right? Like in the times that Canada was super strong, it was times that we were focused on excellence. And there was a pride in being Canadian because Canada was a great place to do business. That will come back now.
Right.
Right? Like the reason why people will start betting on Canada is because Canada always lags the United States. Whatever the United States does, Canada does afterwards. It's impossible for us to deviate for too long. What happens when we deviate for too long? The Canadian dollar gets smoked. The Canadian economy gets smoked. And there is a pivot to what the Americans are doing.
Right.
So it's coming. The longer we wait to accept that, the worse the Canadian economy will do in the short term. The worse we'll do in the short term.
Right.
And the only thing we have in the short term are interest rates.
Right.
So
One trick pony for now.
yeah, like so. Listen, interest rates. The Bank of Canada has been talking a little bit about it. Interest rates will continue to go down in 2025. We're going to see at least another 1 percentage point drop. If we could couple these interest rate drops with a change in government and an ability to start really going in there and negotiating with the Americans, we can like think about the beauty of this. You can go and sit at the table. Like the conservative leader could go and sit at the table and say like, okay, we got the Liberal government out of the way. You didn't like them. Canadians didn't like them. And we want to sit together and want to figure out how Canada can support the United States and how the United States can support Canada.
Right.
And those two things combined will make us both stronger.
Right.
It is a case of like 10 plus 1 equals 15.
Right.
Because the United States is like 10 times the size of Canada. Right? If we can get to that point where there's like a collaborative union between Canada and the United States, Canada is going to skyrocket. And it's not just going to be because we have low interest rates. Interest rates are going to start going up again if that happens.
Right.
But at this moment, we are locked in where companies are not investing in Canada. Canadian companies that have to export or have the United States as a trading partner are paused. Industrial rents are falling. Companies don't invest money. They're not going to take on more space. They're not going to buy more equipment, and they're not going to hire more people. Fewer jobs. The market for workers is shrinking. Population will continue to decrease, and we will be sitting here with lower and lower interest rates, wondering why the real estate market hasn't come back to life yet. So, like, let's strip out the real estate market. Let's strip out interest rates. Let's start focusing on making Canada as excellent as we can, because it's the trend. And the moment Canadians get behind that, what do we always talk about? We talk about consumer optimism and consumer spending. It's going to drive the bus.
Right.
When we see, and this is my call for 2025, if Polymarket's right, 66% chance that Trudeau's gone. conservative government comes in, collaborative approach to dealing with the Americans, stability and certainty in how Canada and the United States trade together. Look out. Look out.
Canada's coming back.
Canada's coming back, baby. And doesn't it just feel better to be optimistic? Remember, my mom does not like it when I am cynical.
No stinking thinking.
Yeah.
We don't like that here on Make Money Count.
So I would say like my goals for Canada for 2025 are to get leadership that cares about Canada. And the sooner we get rid of the current leadership, the more we're going to be focused on using our budget and using our country to get ourselves out of this hole that we got jammed up in because we've been guided by somebody who's more concerned with control than anything else.
Yeah, being the cool kid in the...
I had so many other links and stuff, but I think that's good.
You heard it here first.
If you enjoyed this podcast, Merry Christmas. Thank you for watching.